TPI, I believe, calls this a Squirrel Trace. This fellow on the left here is a pretty big hitter, Gary Woodland. I'm going to expand this a little bit so that you can see it better. Move it over a bit. And you can see just prior to impact, there's a little bit of a circle there. You see that little head on it? That's the pressure backing up and going forward. We're going to get into this in depth here. Short story here, I was, I think 3 years ago, 2.5 years ago, Jim McLean sent me over this trace. It was from Gary Woodland. He said, what do you think of that? I didn't really know who Gary Woodland, and it's the only time that Jim ever has gotten mad at me. He said, well, you should be here because this guy is just bombing it. It's his 500, 200. You don't know your stuff. Boom, boom, boom. Hung up on me. It took about 2 weeks for me to get back to Jim, and we made, you know, we got over it. But I didn't really understand this trace then. I do now. What this is back up just prior to impact. But what we know now is that the center of mass carries forward prior to impact. As long as the center of mass is moving forward, backing up in an iron is not the worst thing. But it's no good for, if you're just backing up in an iron, obviously you can see that's not going to be effective. But Gary hits the ball a ton. Ryan, if you want to add something to this.
From an anatomical standpoint, it's very hard to rotate from your lead heel, okay? It's much easier to rotate your hips from your toes. And think about what we're doing here. We're offsetting forces, right? So if you load into your trail heel and move that trace up to your lead toe and fast enough back to your lead heel, that's a really efficient way to move that energy and create power. It's a very powerful move. Is that the right move for the average Mr. and Mrs. Haverkamp who can't hit the ball? Probably not, because keep in mind what he said. Your center of mass is still moving forward. Why do most of our high handicap players come over the top? Because that feels powerful. They don't understand making all this room for your arms to come through. And so, you know, a tour player, yes, that works really well. A low handicap player, that works really well. For somebody who's hitting big pull slices out there that only go 180 yards, that's a really bad plan, okay? And that's the whole problem that we have to do a better job educating everybody. There is something that works for everybody on this, but tour players are not normal human beings, right? And so just because a lot of the tour players have this swirl trace doesn't mean that's probably what your average handicap player
And you're not going to see it from the 7-iron down to the...
Absolutely not. And they would be very... When we're talking about irons, we're talking about control, we're talking about, you know, precision, you know, the least deviation possible.
And it's not prevalent. It's just out there with some of the longer hitters, like in the guys that can hit a 5-iron 200 yards, you will see this a little bit. But if you tell an average golfer to back up and move your body forward at the same time, it's probably not going to work. You know, I'm just wanting you to make aware of this trace so that when you see it, it's not say, Hashimoto, you didn't tell me about this trace. Okay, it's out there. You will see this with some of the better players that are long in the irons, but you're not going to see it in the short clubs. But it is a cool trace to, we've spent hours on the driving range trying to emulate this trace. I mean, Jake and I are big believers in the fact that you need to be able to demonstrate some of this stuff once in a while.
Yeah. That part of the trace, though, is milliseconds.
Millisecond.
Mm-hmm. Right. So, I mean, it's trying to get that consciously into the swing just ain't going to happen.
Well, maintain hip hinge, depth, all of those things. I mean, you have to be a really good athlete to do that.
So we made a huge mistake when we started Boditrak, and I feel blessed that we have this mulligan here with V1. We made it too complicated. What we've learned now is for the overwhelming majority of your lessons, we have 4 simple fixes, and we're going to show them to you real quick here. But in order to be able to identify those fixes, we have to first show you what it looks like when you see it on the screen. I know college players, understand you're a college coach. I can't tell you the names of the schools we work with because you know the NCAA rules. But I can tell you there's at least no less than a dozen coaches in the United States here today that are making the last team choices based on the trace for the golf courses that they're going to be playing, be it tight, be it wide open, and that last choice usually is a wild card anyways, so they're making their decisions based on traces. I know I'm in serious, I have discussions every week with coaches on this.